All right, so we're back. We've got 5 weeks left of class, and we meet 2 days a week. And unfortunately, in those 5 weeks, there's two Thursdays that we will not have class because next Thursday, not this coming one, but the following, the 11th, is Veterans Day. And I do believe that is a day off that the school is closed for Veterans Day. And then, of course, we'll have Thanksgiving towards the end of November. So, all in all, that would leave us after today only 7 classes left. Marty, question. Yeah, I don't think so. No, typically they've kind of let off Wednesday, so people can travel. If they do, it might be later in the afternoon or something. They might let classes out early, but to my knowledge, we're open on Tuesday of Thanksgiving week. Otherwise, we'd really be short of class periods. So we're getting wound down, and your big thing that you have left to do, of course, is going to be Project 2 to get that finished up. If you note, and I'll go to the content here. If you note, when you get to the content, you get down here to week 13. There's still an assignment and quiz and whatnot, but take a look at week 14. Geez, just a quiz, okay? Week 15 is similar. Now, I may actually show up and lecture a little bit those times because we talk about some monetary policy things and whatnot, which I find kind of interesting. Sorry, so you guys might have to indulge me. But there's not a lot. We run out of problems. Okay, in the textbook, we run out of problems really to do those last couple of weeks. So you're going to have some quizzes on that. Like I said, I may lecture just a little bit. I won't take forever if I do. But that should give you time then to work on the project, which tells you that my expectations also are that you will spend some time and that you will do a good job with this final project. Okay. That said, I'll say right at the start that I I grade these pretty harshly. Okay, my expectations are fairly high. You've also had ample opportunity, and you have a couple more here as we go along to do these steps, which aren't terribly difficult, that you should do well with the finding the ticker symbol, doing the financial information. We're going to talk about outline today, and then you're going to do your introduction and conclusion, and then ultimately write the paper, okay? My most typical critique when I get to the end is that I don't get enough financial analysis, okay? That's what this class is about, and so if you want to focus, not if you want to, you should focus on that final paper of doing a good financial analysis. Hopefully between now and then I'll take some time, and we'll look at some companies, we'll look at a few things, show you some things that I look at, that I think about, that I like to, study. If I'm interested in buying shares of a company, it's the things that I would look at, okay? And those are the things probably that I'm looking for in a paper. Now, for every company, it's going to differ. Different companies have different things that they may push that may be important to them, right? That's part of what you're going to talk about when you talk about strategy. Okay, a little brief on strategy here because that's part of your paper, right? I believe that there's really only two strategies, okay? You can either be a low-cost provider or you can be a differentiator, okay? What is Walmart? Low-cost provider, okay? Their goal is to get products on the shelf as inexpensively as possible, okay, so that they can entice you to buy them and retain good margins. What is Starbucks? I would say they're a differentiator, right? Okay. That said, these things are not mutually exclusive. Just because Starbucks is a differentiator doesn't mean they don't try to reduce their costs, right? Coming in and keep their costs as low as possible. So none of these are mutually exclusive, but yet it's kind of important to talk about what a company does, okay? Nobody chose Costco, right? I don't think anybody chose Costco. I find them kind of fascinating because, you know, they try to get a 13% margin on everything, okay? Their operating costs are 13%. That means that they break even, right? Their profit is almost entirely due to the annual membership fees that people pay. So they're breaking even on just about everything that goes through, and yet they make money then on the membership fees because there's no cost in that for them, right? So people pay the membership fee. So it's kind of fascinating, and those are the kinds of things that I want you looking for maybe with your own company that might make it a little bit unique, that might make it stand out, you know, might be how they operate, you know, why they do that, and Costco's a good example. Now, that said, I can tell you, for crying out loud, I'm really happy to be back in God's country where I don't have to wait in line to pay $4.50 a gallon for gasoline. California was a real pain in the ass when it came to that. So just kind of a heads up. Brendan, where are you from? Oh my, I'm sorry. It's unbelievable. You know, we were down in Ventura and pull in and Costco, you wait in line. There's 6, 7, 8 cars you got to wait. That was every day, all day. And, you know, if you wanted cheaper gas, that's where you went. But even at the other gas stations, if it was relatively inexpensive, you could save 10 cents or something. Holy cow. Just it happened in the 70s, yeah. Yeah, we're getting a little repeat of that maybe. So your next part of your project 2 is going to be the outline. And I want to kind of go over that. I'll tell you the most common critique that I have with the outline is that you're not giving me enough information to tell me where you're going with the financial analysis. Okay, so by that I mean I expect you to start looking at some things with your company. Okay, I expect you to start doing the research so that you can start now and you can kind of continue for the last 5 weeks of the class, and you can add depth and breadth as we go through the last 5 weeks of class. So how do you do an outline? I found that it seems like that's a skill that has gone away a little bit, and so I've kind of gone back and said, well, maybe I need to kind of remediate this a little bit and talk even in the general sense. So one thing you can do, I'm gonna open up a new one, blank. With Word, it becomes fairly easy, and one thing you can do is, you know, I'm going to center it here, and, you know, I'm going to have Acme Inc., okay? So I've centered that, I hit my enter, and then I want to go back to the left side. If I start with a capital I, you know, a Roman numeral 1, I type that, and then I hit the space bar, okay? It'll start an outline for me. And it'll put it in outline form. This is probably the easiest way. If you're worried about the format of an outline, this is probably the easiest way to do it, okay? And as you go along, you know, you type some stuff there. Then if you want to indent the next one, right, because you're going to talk a little bit about it, and I'll show you an example here in a little bit, you just hit the tab. Okay, let me go back and do that. So if I hit the tab, it puts in the little A, okay? Now if I hit enter, oops, I didn't have any, I got to type something. If I hit enter, it'll go to the B. If I want to get back because I'm ready to do number 2, Roman numeral number 2, I hit the shift and the tab, okay? Shift and tab, and then it takes it back so that I can do Roman numeral number 2. And you can, if I hit the tab again, it goes back to the little B. You know, I can keep kind of going down. If I need to put a little subtitle under the little B, I hit tab again, and it gives me a little I then in that case. Okay, easiest way. You can come up here too, and there's some other ways you can do some outlines. You can make it as complicated or as nice as you want. This is probably the easiest way. Just start off and start typing, and away you go. Okay. So what do I want to see in your outline? Here we go. So I got XYZ Inc. You can put the title up there. That's fine. Okay. You got to have an introduction. Okay. In fact, part of your next assignment after outline is going to be to write your introduction and your conclusion paragraphs. Okay. In your introduction, you need to tell me what you're going to tell me. So here I've kind of written your outline for the introduction. Okay, so one, introduction. You're going to talk to me, these are required for the paper. You're going to talk to me a little bit about the history of the company, right? You're going to tell me a little bit about the industry that it competes in. You're going to tell me a little bit about its strategy. By a little bit, you know, a good paragraph for each is probably going to be sufficient in these cases, okay? Some of you might take 2 paragraphs because you got to change a little bit. Maybe there was a big change in the, you know, after the company was around for 40 years, maybe some dramatic change happened and you want to start a new paragraph. That's fine, okay? But, you know, a paragraph or 2, you're going to tell me a little bit about those things. But then you're going to get to the detailed financial analysis, right? And that's going to be the important part of the paper, okay? So then I go down after the introduction. And I've just made stuff up here, but I'm going to talk about the history. That's the first thing, okay? I want to keep things in order. So history, and I've just put in some stuff here for the outline. Give me a few details, okay? It doesn't have to be in depth at this point in time. You know, started in 1922. I got Bill Smith as the founder, you know, whatever, okay? Then the industry in which it competes, and FINRA actually will kind of tell you some of that actually, but I put down something here. I put consumer discretionary, okay? There's consumer staples, and what are consumer staples? Those are the things we all have to have, probably food, clothing, shelter types of things, okay? Consumer discretionary is the bowling ball maybe that we might buy, or the golf clubs that we were talking about, or some of those things, right, that we don't absolutely have to have, okay, but that we might kind of like. So that's what consumer discretionary would be, just so I got the wrong competitors down here then, because let me change that. I'm going to go to consumer staple because my competitors are consumer staples. Okay. So leading competitors, I got P&G, which would be Procter & Gamble, and CP, which would be Colgate-Palmolive. Okay. Don't abbreviate. I kind of abbreviated here just to make this a little bit quicker for me this morning. You might have 5 or 6. And again, FINRA does actually a decent job. It can show you some things about the competitors, and I'll try to get to that and show you. Okay. Strategy, I put that their strategy is kind of low cost. How do they implement their strategy? That's kind of important too. And you may not find that right away. That may be something that you're going to have to look up on the annual reports and whatnot. I kind of said, well, these guys like to do a lot of supply chain management. They really like to control the costs on the supply chain side. Okay, that's Walmart's strategy, just kind of so you know. I mean, they do everything they can to reduce the costs to get things to the shelf. They don't necessarily pass all those costs on to you. If they don't, then they have higher margins, right? Okay, so low cost can be a little different than low price. Keep that in mind. Okay. Then I got to the financial portion, okay? And I kind of stopped here early, so you guys need to expand it more than that. But here is one suggestion of how you can organize that, okay? You can organize that by, let's say, the statements that we would normally analyze, okay? There's the main statements are going to be the income statement. And that's probably the one you're going to analyze the most. The next is probably going to be the balance sheet, okay? Third would be the cash flow, okay? And lastly, you probably want to do some ratio analysis then, okay? If I were going to organize it this way, that's how I would probably do it, okay? So I got financial, I got 4 subheadings: income, balance sheet, cash flow, ratio analysis. Now I just need to start filling that in. And this is what I want you to do in your outline, okay? And fill this in so I have an idea where you're going with that. And this is going to take a little research. And again, the income statement is probably going to be the longest part of this. There's more usually going on in the income statement. But balance sheet, cash flow, you know, cash flow can be, it gets stuff from the income statement, so it's not necessarily completely different, and on and on and on. So I've put in a few things. Again, I just kind of made these up, but things that you got to look for, right? Now, they've had consistent revenue increases for the last 5 years. Kind of boring, but we need to mention it, right? Their gross margins are narrowing a bit, I put there, right? So, you know, that means that their cost of goods sold is actually increasing a little bit, so their gross margins are decreasing a little bit. I said their operating margins remain consistent, which means that they're actually, and I put that, their operating costs are being well managed. And thus, their net incomes increased relative to revenue increases. Okay, so as their revenue has increased, so has their net income. But then I put in here that the earnings per share have increased even more than that, but that's because they've been buying back some shares. Ooh, okay. All this stuff I can find really, really easily if I'm looking at a particular company. And I didn't do this for any particular company. I just made this stuff up. Okay. But all this kind of stuff I can find pretty easily, but it's part of a good analysis, right? You may have some other things on your income statement that you want to include in there, okay? You may have a big jump in revenue that happened in 2018. Ooh, okay, well, I need to have a subheading about that and say, what the hell happened in 2018 that caused revenues to jump? Okay, maybe I had a big revenue decrease. Okay, what the hell happened? Maybe it was the pandemic, maybe some other things, right? You know, we may have, because of the pandemic, you may have companies like Zoom that had revenue that went poof, you know, through the roof in 2019 or 20, be 2020, right? You may have other companies that they're like airlines that their revenue just imploded, okay, in 2020, right? Okay, so those are the things, and with the pandemic, we could have some interesting things that show up, right? Okay. Again, then I'd come here and I'd go there, hit my shift tab, and I'd go next, you know, balance sheet. Okay. And some things that I'm going to look for in the balance sheet, right? I want to look for, you know, what's happening with their current assets, what's happening with their current liabilities. Okay. Those are kind of immediate things, but sometimes they can have some dramatic changes in them, maybe not. Okay. Maybe they've had a big increase in cash. That's wonderful, sort of. But then we speculate as to what they're going to do with the cash, and we might want to look that up. Okay, what happens if they took on a huge amount of debt in 2018? Maybe something happened. Maybe they made an acquisition. You know, maybe we'll go back and look at the income statement, and maybe 2019 they had a lot more income, revenue, okay, because maybe they made an acquisition or something. And right now we're kind of speculating a little bit on those things, and that's fine. In the outline, you can speculate a little bit, or you can just put down, hey, I need to look into this further. That's fine, okay? But then those are the things you are going to look at to do your final, you know, to do the final project, right? To do your final paper. So, again, you go through the balance sheet like that, cash flow. I do ratio analysis. The other way you can organize this, and it might make sense for some of you and some of the companies that you're doing, might be more chronologically, okay? So you could go back 5 years and you could say, you know, here's what the company was doing in 2016 with income, balance sheet, cash flow, ratio analysis. Here's what they were doing in 2017. Here was a big change from 16 to 17, and here's why. Here's what happened, okay? So some companies, that might make more sense. You have to take a look at your company or ask me if you got some questions, you know, which way might make more sense to organize it. And you may have another way, and that's fine. Run it by me, and I may be perfectly fine with that, okay? Different companies might have different things to look at, okay? Then at the end here, be sure that you do a conclusion, and be sure that your conclusion has these things again, okay? When you're writing any kind of like a research paper like this, you always got to tell me what you're going to tell me, and then tell me what you told me, right? So you're going to summarize the major items in your introduction, and then you're going to write the paper, the body of the paper, and then you're going to summarize all those major items once again in the conclusion, okay? That doesn't have to be complicated. Make that simple. Okay, this is what I'm going to talk about in the paper. I'm going to talk about the history, the industry, the strategy, and a detailed financial analysis. Okay. Any questions about doing that outline? You know, set up the, if it's me, I'm setting up the major structure. I'm going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I got financial, so I'm going to have 6 things. Okay. Set those 6 things up and then go back. You know, I can come back here now if I want to and go, oh, let's see. Strategy, I wanted to add something there. I'm going to go there, and then I'm going to go there. I can add back in, and so then I can just start to expand on that. So that would be my suggestion. Get your 6 starting points and then start filling in some of those gaps. And the more detail, the better, okay? Your intro and conclusion should be simple. They should both look pretty much just like this, right? Your conclusion should also contain this, though, because it's a requirement of the paper, is what your recommendation is, okay? And again, you may not know what your recommendation is at this point because you haven't done your analysis, but you can put in the outline, your final thing is the recommendation to maybe buy, sell, or hold, okay? So your conclusion will look much like this, except you should have another item E that would be, you know, my recommendation is to blank, right? Because you may not know at this point in time. You should know at this point in time, okay? You may think you know, you may think you love the company and everything. You might get into some detailed analysis and say, yeah, maybe it's not so great, okay? Questions about that? Questions about the assignment for this week that should be posted and everything? So, again, you're getting close to being done with problems, Yahoo, right? I was going to just take a look. Let's take a look at Costco just for the heck of it, just to show you CSCEO, not Cisco. What's Costco? COST. Gosh. Up. Take a look at their financials. Income statement. Gross profit, right? Okay. And I said their margin, they try to sell everything right at 13%. Look at that. I mean, it's not exact, but it's pretty dang close to 13%, right? Their operating expenses are about 10%. So they do have about a 3% in operating income. But I think that their revenue also includes their memberships. So if we could go up and figure out how much of their, you know, how much of this is their membership, I think it's just about everything actually. And where am I going to find that out? It's not going to show up here. This is why I keep emphasizing this. It's not going to show up here on FINRA. This is when I got to go look at the annual reports. Okay, got to go look at the annual reports because that's going to tell me. It's going to break down. It's going to give me even more detail about these financial statements, and it's going to give me some comments about those. Okay, but you know, they're pretty dang consistent. Costco would be a horrible company, I say, to analyze because they're just so damn consistent. You know, they got good growth, they got a consistent margin, they got consistent this, consistent that, okay? Pretty good about those things. It would be tough to analyze because there's just nothing fun going on, right? No acquisitions, no mergers, no any of those things. But maybe not a bad company to invest in, so. Okay, I'll leave it at that and let you guys get to work on those things. So I think outlines due this week, isn't it?